Rayman the Board Game is a game for 1 to 4 players in which you are playing as a hero, racing to save the Teensies from various threats across different levels. The game is primarily competitive, but also offers cooperative and solo modes. This video explains the competitive mode of the game. Setup. Place the 2 jungle tiles side by side to form the game board. Give each player a character figure, the corresponding action cards, and a player card. Place the bonus mini cards face down at the center of the board. Place the round Teensy tokens at the center of the board. For your first game, place the 4 Teensy prisoner tokens on the board in the indicated spaces. In subsequent games, players can choose where to put the Teensy prisoner tokens. Place the projectile and heart tokens and the die next to the board. Place the player figures on the corresponding space based on the player count. Gameplay. Each player picks 2 cards from their hand and reveals them simultaneously by placing them face up. The number indicated on the leftmost card determines the player's initiative. The player with the highest initiative goes first. Initiative is not the sum of both cards, but only the leftmost card's value matters. If 2 players have the same initiative, the player with the highest initiative value on their second card goes first. After determining the initiative order, the round begins with players applying the effects of their action cards in the order they want, within the allowed number of actions. Actions. Movement. It allows the player to move 1 space laterally, either forward or backward. To track how far to go on the board, a player can use the movement tracker token. Place it right above the space corresponding to the total amount of movements allowed by the 2 cards played. You cannot end your turn on a space occupied by another player. If you land on an occupied space, you must move to a free space directly above, below, or behind. If those spaces are unavailable, blocked, or contain obstacles, your figure stays 1 space behind the other player. When a player on a higher platform moves without using a glide action and lands on a space without a platform, their figure is subject to gravity and falls 1 space at a time until reaching a platform. During the fall, a player can perform any action except a jump. In 2 to 4 player games, the player furthest from the finish line gets 1 extra movement action after all players have finished their turns. In games with 4 or more players, the 2 furthest players each receive 1 extra movement action. Jump. Players can use a jump action to move upwards to higher platforms, advancing 1 level per jump. Jumps must be made from a platform, not from an empty space, and a player cannot jump while crawling. To reach a nearby higher platform, players can combine 1 jump action with a movement action if the platform is 1 space away. While jumping, players can move through platforms, but cannot jump downwards through them. Slap. Slaps can be used to attack enemies, hit players, or free a Teensy. If a space is occupied by both a player and a Teensy prisoner, you must choose to either hit the player or free the Teensy, requiring an additional slap action to do both. 1 slap defeats an enemy, earning a bonus card, but you cannot defeat an enemy if another player is already on its space, unless you slap the player away first. Enemies can only be defeated once per player per turn. You can also slap from a distance, 2 slaps for a target 1 space away, 3 for a target 2 spaces away, and 4 for a target 3 spaces away, but no further. You can slap from a distance through platforms, but not through walls. You can slap another player to move them 1 space away. If you hit the player from behind, they must move forward. If you hit them from the front, they must move backward. Glide. Using a glide action allows your character to stabilize in the air. Combined with a movement action, 1 glide action allows you to move around on the same level without using a platform. You can remain floating for any number of spaces, but a glide action alone does not count as a movement action. Using a slap action while gliding will end your glide action. To stay in the air, you must use a second glide action. Otherwise, your character will fall until they reach a platform. Glide actions must always end on ground level or on a platform. You cannot use crouch or jump actions while gliding. Crouch. A crouch action lowers your character closer to the ground. Combined with a movement action, it allows you to crawl under thick platforms or stationary projectiles. You can stay crouched across multiple spaces, but crouching alone doesn't count as movement. One crouch action is enough to crawl under both a thick platform and a projectile when combined with the necessary number of movement actions. Crouching ends after your turn unless you remain under a platform. If you start a turn under a platform, you're already crouched. You can't end your turn under a projectile, and crouching stops once you leave the platform or projectile. You cannot crouch while gliding. Heart. Players can hold only one active heart token at a time, which protects them from damage. To get a heart token, they play a heart action and place the token on their player card. If hit by an enemy, obstacle, or projectile, they lose the token. Without it, the character is defeated and must move back 2 spaces at any level, but gains temporary immunity until the current turn ends. Heart tokens can't block another player's slap action, and using a bubble action also removes the token. In cooperative mode, players can give their heart token to another player by using a heart action. Lums. Lums are available only in Legend mode or custom parties. The Lum action lets you use the special ability or trade shown on your legendary player card. If not playing in Legend mode, ignore the Lum symbol on the action and bonus cards. Once all players have taken their turn, they discard their hand and the round ends. A new round starts with players selecting 2 new cards. Teensies. To free a teensy prisoner, you need to use a slap action. Once a teensy has been freed, leave the teensy prisoner token on the board so other players can access it. Instead, take a round teensy token from the corresponding pile and place it on your player card. You cannot save the same teensy twice. Bonus cards. When you defeat an enemy, draw a bonus card and keep it face up on your player card. You can have a maximum of 4 cards. You can use as many bonus cards as you want on your turn, and they offer a choice of 2 different actions. Bubble action. After each round, players must discard the 2 action cards they played. To retrieve discarded cards, players can declare a bubble action at the start of a round, at the same time as revealing new action cards. A bubble action allows players to recover their discarded cards. It gives them an initiative of 11 and grants them temporary immunity until the round ends. They stay in place, lose any heart token they have, and skip their turn, resuming play in the next round. Players must use a bubble action if they have no action cards left. Projectiles. Once all of the players have completed their turn, a projectile must be launched. Roll the die to determine the level at which to launch the projectile. Place a projectile token on the space number 21 at the level indicated by the number on the die. At the end of the next round, move the first projectile 8 spaces forward. Then, roll the die again to determine the level on which to place the second projectile and place it on space number 21. The same rules apply for all subsequent rounds. If an active projectile crosses the path of a player, the player either loses their heart token or is considered defeated if they do not have a heart token. The projectile token is then removed from the board. As soon as a player manages to end their turn on the second tile board, all new projectiles are launched from space number 43 instead. End of the game. When a player with 3 teensy tokens crosses the finish line, they continue moving as far as possible, ignoring enemies, walls, and obstacles. Other players finish their turns in initiative order, and if they also cross the finish line with 3 teensies, they do the same. The player who moves the furthest beyond the finish line wins the race. In case of a tie, the player with the highest initiative wins. If the initiative is the same, both players win. The rulebook provides options to adapt the game difficulty for the competitive mode and also a solo and cooperative mode.